Hey everybody, welcome back to the NC State Insider Podcast. I'm your host and lead beat writer Tucker Sennett, joining you here tonight to discuss the Wolfpack's pretty heartbreaking, devastating loss in terms of their season's outlook, 77-76 to the Miami Hurricanes, a complete collapse down the stretch, an 8-0 run from the Hurricanes in the final 52 seconds ends up being the difference. Darian Williams fouled True Washington on a three-point attempt with just a few seconds left on the clock, and he goes to the free throw line and sinks all three of those. But the fact that it reached a point where a foul by Williams on a three-point shooter decided the game when NC State led this game by 7 points with over a minute to, or with just over a minute to play is really kind of representative of how this game was lost. Will Wade was really frustrated after this one to the point where he sort of I don't want to say lost hope for the outlook of this team, but he doesn't seem to see a lot of promise. He doesn't seem to see the improvement he's looking for in this version of the Wolfpack, and it seems to be boiling over of late. Obviously, not the response that this team wanted coming off that 41-point loss to Louisville, a disastrous outing on Monday. Um, and to come back and lose a third ACC game in the Lenovo Center just really is a tough pill to swallow for Wade and this team as a whole. We'll dive into it. I'll start with the box score. Pretty dominant effort on the glass from Miami in this one. That was sort of to be expected, but it just felt like every time NC State either made a run or tried to pull away or was coming back at one point, Miami extended possessions with offensive rebounds. They end up getting 20 offensive rebounds in this game. The Wolfpack had just eight. They out rebounded State 40 to 29. And, major part of that was Malik Reneau, who was just a menace on the glass. He and Shelton Henderson both just really caused problems for NC State. And then Ernest Uday Jr. also with several offensive rebounds. But Reneau was just an animal in the paint. Will Wade was blown away by his effort after the game. He even said like that's what it should look like. He said that about three or four times after the game. Renault had 26 points, shot 12 of 19 from the field, finished with just six rebounds, four of which came on the offensive end, had a blocked shot in the game, but just came up with buckets when he needed to and was stout on the defensive end, knocked down a three late. Everything you would want if you're Jay Lucas from your star player, Renault had it. And this was a Miami team that needed every possible thing to go right down the stretch and they made it happen. They really did. They end up scoring 56 paint points to NC State's 32. NC State hasn't been particularly successful throughout the year when they aren't ahead in the paint points, and that was certainly the case on Saturday night here. But they found a way to pull away, and it looked like they had a shot to really steal one here, leading by seven. After a really, really solid stretch from Van Allen Lubin, Darian Williams got things going late after he committed a technical foul that sort of sparked the building a little bit. Um, Paul McNeil, 14 points in this one, all of them coming in the second half. Quadir Copeland, 11 points, five assists, but wasn't as sharp as he normally is in this game. The real stars of the show for NC State were Van Allen Lubin and Matt Abel, who each scored 17 points. Ven was one rebound from a double-double and came to life down the stretch. He was, fighting for his life at times, matched up against both Uday and Renault at different points of the game. And, with all the physicality he was dealing with, he was still able to have a productive game. in his 32 minutes of work. Abel was phenomenal off the bench, scored 15 of his 17 in the second or in the first half. And then he and McNeil kind of traded with McNeil getting hot in the second half. But um, Wade was really pleased with what Abel showed. He said he was one of the more physical and tough players that played for NC State in this game. And then there were some guys that really struggled in this one. Trey Hallman not himself in this game after what was a nice stretch for a few games over the last couple of weeks. He finishes with just 2 points, 0 of 5 from the field, 4 assists. So he was kind of playing that point guard role that I think a lot of people expected from him, but not the sharp version of himself that I think fans had become accustomed to seeing. And NC State made its push. It ripped off a 9-0 run, gets the 7 point lead. Uh, it was some really really impressive offense in that moment, but you could just tell that it didn't feel like it was quite enough. And then the mistakes started. They just could not inbound the ball, could not handle the double teams and the pressures, and crumbled in that final minute. It seemed like, Will Wade said after the game that they practiced that press offense a lot, but it just seemed like they were so shocked by the fact that Miami came with the full court pressure. They were rattled. And Quadir Copeland goes to the free throw line with a chance to put the team up by 4 or 3 if he just makes the front end of the 1-and-1. And he misses the front end of the 1-and-1. And Miami obviously comes down. Williams fouls Washington. He knocks down all 3 of his free throws, the 3 most important of the game. Miami only shot 50% from the free throw line, and that's how they win the game, which, that's got to be really frustrating for the NC State team. But it was just so much more than that. It was the rebounding, it was the over reliance on the 3 point shot, which kept NC State in the game to their defense. But it also becoming overly dependent on it meant that, when the shots stopped falling, Miami was able to close the gap. And then ultimately, at the end of the game, 3 point shots are not what's going to win you a basketball game. It's being able to knock it down your free throws, control the ball, not turn it over, and those things, and rebound. And those 3 things did not happen for NC State in the final minute. And now things get really, really interesting down the stretch for this group. I think there's some serious frustration. There's some serious concern with what the ceiling of this team can be. Miami's a very, very solid team that's now, I would say, pretty comfortably in the NCAA tournament field. NC State's now dropping down towards the bubble. I think Will Wade, after the game, might have overreacted a little bit, saying that, the Wolfpack will be lucky to play in Dayton. I'm not ready to cast that level of concern on this team. I don't think it's reached that point, but I do think, the schedule is really tough. NC State's really going to need to find a way to go 3-3 in this final stretch and get to that 21 win mark, and win a couple games, or one game at least in the ACC tournament. But it's going to be really hard. It's going to require a consistency that the Wolfpack has not had at various points of the 2025-26 season, and didn't have it tonight. It just, there wasn't an urgency in the one moment that there really needed to be urgency, and it snowballed. And the Pack had a look at the very end. Matt Abel got free for a half court heave, which, you can't be relying on that in that situation. You can't. And I'm not in practices. I don't know, what that looks like. And I believe Wade when he says that this team practices full court pressure situations, et cetera. But they looked so lost against the Miami pressure. And I know Miami brought in some different personnel with their pressure, some guys that NC State hadn't seen to that point, which, can create some confusion, but they just they didn't really know how to handle it. And when you're basically playing 5-on-4 in that kind of situation with Lubin on the floor, but you also can't take him off because you need his rebounding, you need his finishing inside. So they basically were able to get him thrown out of the play more or less because of his free throw shooting. And Copeland ends up with the ball, misses the biggest free throw of the night. Only one of two that NC State misses in the game. And then the officials decide that they want to call foul in the last play of the game. And I think I'd be to say the political way of saying it is you never want to let a college basketball official decide or be the deciding factor in your game because more times than not they're going to make the wrong call. And I'm not I'm being impartial in this view. I don't think that there was a foul on that play. I really don't. I think Williams got the ball first and then got his hand. And to make that call as quickly as the official did in that moment is pretty baffling. But Wade put it this way. They escaped a fate like this one against SMU, and they were riding high, and then it comes back to bite you in a game like this. And that's just kind of sometimes how basketball goes. It's such a give and take kind of sport. And sometimes the ball bounces your way and sometimes it doesn't. And the fact that the Wolfpack was relying on that is an indictment on their performance in this game. And to shoot 38% from three and make six more three-pointers than Miami and still lose by one is an indictment on the identity, which Will Wade brought up after the game again. He talked about that on the radio show, how this team has a bit of an identity crisis. He feels as though it's kind of a soft jump shooting team, and that's not what he wants. It's his teams of the past are predicated on defense, which has not been a consistency. I'm not going to say it hasn't been a strength because there are times when this team is ferocious on the defensive end, but it just doesn't remain to the level that he wants it. And it's not sustainable for this group. And at times the defense was excellent. But then comes another issue. You got rebounding. And NC State was out tough or was out toughed on the glass in this game. Um, which does not bode well for some of the coming matchups. Obviously, you got North Carolina on Tuesday, which you're not dealing with Caleb Wilson. VSAR missed their game against Pitt today, and they still found a way to bludgeon the Panthers in Chapel Hill. So we'll see what happens with that, but not a result that I think Will Wade is going to get over anytime soon. He took a lot of the responsibility for the loss and believes that it's his coaching that's causing games like this and problems like this at home. I think he has some guilt about the way that this team has played at home. There just isn't a level of pride that he's used to in defending the home court. And I I don't really know where this team goes from here in terms of fixing things because we are so late in the season. And now it's just, you kind of just have to go out there and play basketball. I don't think the identity or the fabric of this group is going to change much. And I think it ultimately comes down to whether this NC State team can flip a switch mentally and realize that its back is against the wall now. And it's done that at times. throughout this year, but it's been a while since they've been in a do or die situation like this over the final few weeks here, and they're certainly in it now. And that's kind of how I'll end it here. But you know, stuff just got real for this Wolfpack team. They will not be coasting into the NCAA tournament anymore after this loss. And we'll see how this affects all the metrics and things like that, things of that nature throughout the coming days. But we'll have to wait and see what happens for NC State. As always, really appreciate you all for tuning in. Feel free to follow me on social media at Senate Tucker. You can also follow the website at Wolfpack on SI. You can get daily episodes of the NC State Insider podcast on our YouTube channel, the sports videos on SI YouTube channel. And I hope to see you guys again for the next episode.